Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Meridian and watched the stars shift outside the viewport. The ship had been exploring the outer rim for 3 months when Earth Command sent the message that changed everything. First contact was no longer a dream or a fear, but a reality happening right now. The aliens had found Earth before humans found them. The communication came through on all frequencies at once. Ambassador Zeltar of the Vorthan Empire spoke in perfect English with a voice that sounded like grinding metal. The message was simple and direct. Humanity would join the Galactic Coalition under their terms or face the consequences. They gave Earth 1 week to decide. Captain Lisa Hayes stood beside Morrison and studied the sensor readings. The alien fleet had appeared from nowhere using technology that made human faster-than-light travel look like walking. 12 massive ships hung in space near the edge of the solar system. Each ship was 3 times larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons could probably turn Earth into dust in minutes. "They want to meet us here," Morrison said, as he read the coordinates. "Neutral space between our systems." "Why here?" Hayes asked. "If they wanted to show strength, they would come to Earth directly." Morrison looked at the tactical display again. Something felt wrong about the alien formation. The ships stayed far apart from each other. They kept their engines running and their shields up. Every ship had clear escape routes mapped out. It looked less like a show of force and more like animals getting ready to run. The Meridian jumped to the meeting point first. Morrison wanted to see how the aliens moved when they thought they were alone. The ship's sensors recorded everything as the Vorthan fleet arrived. The aliens approached slowly and carefully. They scanned everything multiple times before moving. Closer. When they detected the Meridian, they immediately moved into defensive positions. Ambassador Zeltar's ship was the only one that came close enough for visual contact. Even then, it stayed at maximum weapons range. The alien spoke through the communication system with words that seemed rehearsed and formal. He wanted to discuss terms for humanity's integration into galactic society. "Your species shows promise," Zeltar said during their first meeting, "but you are young and dangerous. We have watched your wars from afar. We know what you are capable of." Morrison tried to understand what the alien meant. Human weapons were primitive compared to what the Coalition possessed. Human ships were slower and smaller. Human technology was thousands of years behind galactic standards. What could possibly make them dangerous to beings who could cross the galaxy in days? "We have observed your military conflicts for many cycles," Zeltar continued. "Your soldiers move differently than other species. They strike without warning and disappear without trace. They kill from distances that should be impossible with your technology. They work together without speaking, as if they share one mind." Hayes looked confused. "He's talking about our special forces," she whispered to Morrison. "Snipers and reconnaissance teams. We call them the Silent Deathbringers," Zeltar said. "They appear in recordings from your conflicts but never make sound. They eliminate targets and vanish like ghosts. No other species in the galaxy fights this way." Morrison realized the aliens had been watching human wars through long-range sensors for decades. They had seen special operations missions and sniper attacks. They had witnessed small unit tactics and stealth operations. To aliens who fought with massive armies and energy weapons that lit up the sky, human warfare must have seemed like dark magic. The meeting continued for hours, but the real conversation happened through actions, not words. Morrison ordered standard military exercises around the Meridian. He wanted to show the aliens that humans could be reasonable partners. The ship launched a few fighters and ran basic patrol patterns. Nothing threatening or aggressive. The response was immediate and telling. The entire Vorthan fleet moved back to long range. Their ships went to high alert. Zeltar's voice became tight with what might have been fear when he demanded to know what the humans were doing. The exercises were so basic that Morrison barely considered them military maneuvers at all. "Stand down your weapons," Zeltar ordered. "We detect no energy signatures, but we know your warriors are moving." Morrison looked at Hayes with growing understanding. The aliens couldn't see the human fighters properly. Their sensors were designed to detect energy weapons and shield signatures. They were looking for the wrong things. To them, the human ships had simply vanished from sight while remaining somehow dangerous. The negotiation ended with a temporary agreement. Humanity would have 6 months to prove they could be peaceful members of galactic society. A joint mission would test human willingness to cooperate with coalition forces. If humans failed the test, the Vorthan Empire would take action to protect the galaxy from the silent death-bringers. After the aliens left, Morrison stood alone on the bridge thinking about what had just happened. The most advanced civilization in the galaxy was afraid of humanity. Not because humans were stronger or smarter or more advanced. They were afraid because humans fought like predators instead of prey. They were afraid because human soldiers moved through battlefields like hunters stalking game. Hayes returned to the bridge with intelligence reports from Earth Command. Every human military unit that had encountered alien observers reported the same thing. The aliens watched from safe distances. They never got close during conflicts. They seemed especially interested in special operations missions and anything involving stealth or precision shooting. "They've been studying us," Hayes said, "learning how we fight. But they don't understand what they're seeing." Morrison nodded as he looked out at the stars. Humanity was about to enter a galaxy full of civilizations that had forgotten how to hunt. They had technology and numbers and massive fleets, but they had also grown soft and predictable. They fought like prey animals trying to scare away predators. With displays of size and noise, the humans were the predators now. And the galaxy was about to learn why that made all the difference. Colonel Ryan Brooks stepped off the transport ship onto the dead world of Kepler 442b and immediately knew something was wrong. The air tasted of metal and fear. The Zephyrian colony that had thrived here for 50 years was gone. Every building stood empty, every street lay silent. But there were no Badas and no signs of fighting. The joint expedition included warriors from 6 different coalition species. They came prepared for war with powered armor that hummed with energy and weapons that could level city blocks. Their sensors swept constantly for threats. Their communications chattered with status reports and tactical updates. They moved like an army expecting battle at any moment. Sergeant Amy Foster watched the alien forces with quiet amusement. Her reconnaissance team consisted of just 4 humans carrying simple projectile weapons and basic gear. No powered armor. No energy shields. No sensors that announced their presence to everyone within 10 kilometers. They moved through the abandoned city like shadows while the coalition army stomped through the main streets. "The attackers came from the north," announced Commander Vextai of the Kethver forces. His massive armored form pointed toward a cluster of damaged buildings. "We will advance in formation and secure the area." Dr. Paul Carter knelt beside what looked like a normal wall and ran his fingers along marks that the alien sensors had missed completely. "Someone was here for weeks," he said quietly to Foster. "See these scratches? Tool marks where they prepared firing positions. This wasn't a quick raid." Foster studied the marks and nodded. Human eyes saw details that alien technology overlooked. The attackers had planned carefully. They had prepared the battlefield before striking. They had turned the colony into a hunting ground where every angle and distance had been calculated in advance. The alien forces spread out through the city center with their weapons ready and their sensors active. They expected to find evidence of the mysterious attackers. Instead, they found empty buildings and silent streets. Their frustration grew as hours passed without discovering anything useful. Foster's team moved through areas the aliens hadn't even noticed. They followed signs invisible to coalition technology. A scratched wall here, disturbed dust there, shadows that fell in patterns no civilian would create. The story of what happened became clear to anyone who knew how to read it. They were human. Foster whispered into her communication device. The words reached Brooks but not the alien forces. Human military communications used frequencies and encryption the coalition couldn't detect. To them, it looked like the humans worked together through telepathy or magic. The evidence was everywhere. Once you knew what to look for, human footprints. In places where aliens wouldn't think to step. Ammunition casings from human weapons hidden where only another human would find them. Observation posts built using techniques taught in human military schools. Brooks received Foster's report and felt his blood turn cold. A rogue human military unit had done this. They had eliminated an entire alien colony without leaving obvious traces. They had vanished back into space before anyone knew what happened. Somewhere out there was a group of human soldiers who had decided the galaxy was their hunting ground. Contact, Foster's voice crackled through the communication system. 2 kilometers northeast, they're still here. The coalition forces immediately went to high alert. Weapons powered up, shields activated. Sensors swept the area looking for targets, but their technology found nothing. No energy signatures, no movement detected. No communication signals intercepted. The attackers might as well have been ghosts. Foster and her team moved toward the contact while the alien forces tried to follow. But the coalition warriors were too loud and too obvious. Their powered armor announced their position to anyone within kilometers. Their energy weapons lit up every sensor in the city. They moved like prey animals traveling in herds for protection. The rogue humans had prepared for this moment. They had studied coalition tactics and technology. They knew exactly how the alien forces would respond to contact. They had turned that knowledge into an advantage that made them nearly invincible. The first shot came from impossible range. A coalition scout simply fell over with no warning. No energy discharge, no visible muzzle flash. Just a soldier suddenly dead from a projectile weapon fired from so far away that the aliens couldn't even determine the direction. Their sensors showed nothing but empty buildings. Foster's team spread out and went to ground. They moved through the city using cover and concealment while the coalition forces bunched together in defensive formations. The aliens were fighting the way their training taught them. The humans were hunting the way their instincts demanded. There, Foster whispered as she spotted movement through her scope. A human figure in camouflage that made him nearly invisible, even to her trained eyes. He was positioned in a building that coalition sensors had scanned and declared empty. He had been there all along waiting for the right moment to strike. The alien forces never saw what killed them. One by one their scouts fell to shots from weapons they couldn't detect fired by enemies they couldn't see. Their technology was useless against opponents who didn't rely on energy signatures or electronic systems. Their formations became death traps when the enemy could predict exactly how they would move. Foster and her team closed in on the rogue. Humans using skills learned from the same training programs. But they had advantages the aliens lacked. They understood how their targets thought. They could move without making sound. They could communicate without using detectable frequencies. They could become invisible without advanced technology. The final confrontation lasted less than 10 minutes. Foster's team eliminated the rogue soldiers using precise shots and coordinated movement. No energy weapons. No communication chatter, no sensor sweeps. Just human hunters eliminating other human hunters through superior skill and better positioning. The alien forces found the aftermath but understood none of it. 4 dead humans in a building their sensors had declared empty. No signs of how Foster's team had approached or departed. No evidence of the battle except for bodies that appeared to have simply fallen over at their post. Dr. Carter examined the rogue soldiers and found modifications that explained their effectiveness: enhanced reflexes, improved senses, extended endurance. They had turned themselves into perfect human predators using technology the coalition had never seen before. They had become the silent deathbringers the aliens feared most. Brooks filed his report knowing it would terrify coalition leadership. The rogue humans had eliminated an entire colony without leaving obvious evidence. They had survived for months in hostile territory using only their training and instincts. They had turned a coalition rescue mission into a hunting expedition. Where the aliens were the prey, Foster and her team returned to base camp without fanfare or celebration. They had done what human soldiers always did. They had hunted down their targets and eliminated them efficiently. The fact that their prey had been fellow humans made no difference to the outcome. Predators eliminated other predators when necessary. The coalition forces departed Kepler 442b with new respect for human capabilities and new fear of human intentions. They had witnessed something that challenged everything they believed about warfare. They had seen 4 humans defeat enemies that their entire army couldn't even find. They had learned why the galaxy was beginning to fear Earth's silent soldiers. General Elena Rodriguez stepped into the Vorthan Military Academy on Nexus Prime and immediately felt the weight of 1,000 alien eyes watching her every move. The greatest military minds in the coalition had gathered to witness what they expected would be humanity's humiliation. They planned to prove that human tactics were primitive tricks that wouldn't work against advanced technology and superior numbers. The Academy's wargame facility covered an entire moon. Artificial terrain included mountains, forests, cities, and industrial complexes. Advanced holographic projectors could create any environment imaginable. Sensor networks monitored every square meter of the battlefield. The Vorthans considered it the ultimate test of military skill. Lieutenant Commander Steve Murphy stood beside Rodriguez and studied the mission briefing with calm professionalism. The exercise was simple in concept but overwhelming in scale. 12 human Marines would face 300 coalition warriors across terrain larger than most planets. The aliens would have access to their most advanced equipment, including energy weapons, powered armor, and artificial intelligence support. Systems. They expect us to lose quickly, Murphy said as he watched alien commanders discussing strategy. This isn't a test of our abilities. It's a demonstration designed to put us in our place. Rodriguez nodded as she observed the coalition forces preparing for battle. Each alien species brought their finest warriors. The Kepler came with berserker rage and massive weapons. The Zephyrians brought precision technology and coordinated tactics. The Vorthans provided leadership and strategic planning. Together they represented the best military power the galaxy could assemble. The human team looked pathetic by comparison. 12 Marines with basic equipment and no technological advantages. Their weapons were simple projectile firearms that the aliens considered antiques. Their gear was lightweight cloth and metal that provided no energy shielding. They carried communication devices that worked on frequencies the Coalition barely monitored. Major Kate Sullivan briefed her team while alien observers watched through security cameras. The Marines listened without taking notes or asking questions. They understood their mission through experience and instinct rather than detailed planning. They would disappear into the terrain and let their enemies come to them. The exercise began at dawn with the coalition forces advancing from multiple directions. Their plan was simple and effective. Use overwhelming firepower and advanced sensors to force the humans into defensive positions. Then eliminate them through coordinated attacks that would showcase alien military superiority. The war game would be over within hours. Rodriguez watched the tactical display from the observation center and smiled at what she saw. The alien forces moved exactly as their training dictated. Large formations with heavy weapons support, constant communication between units, sensor sweeps that revealed every energy signature within kilometers. They fought like civilized beings following established rules of warfare. The human team vanished from all sensors within minutes of the exercise beginning. No energy signatures, no communication intercepts, no movement detected by the sophisticated monitoring systems. The coalition forces advanced into terrain that appeared completely empty while 300 warriors searched for 12 enemies, who seemed to have simply disappeared. Hours passed without contact. The alien commanders grew frustrated as their forces found nothing but empty wilderness. Their sensors detected no targets. Their communications intercepted no enemy signals. Their patrols discovered no signs of human presence. The sophisticated wargame facility showed only coalition forces moving through uninhabited terrain. "Where are they?" demanded General Corksville of the Kepler forces. His warriors had swept through forests and mountains without finding any trace. of human activity. Our sensors show everything. They cannot hide from our technology. The Vorthan observers began questioning whether the humans had actually participated in the exercise. Perhaps they had withdrawn rather than face inevitable defeat. Perhaps their primitive technology had malfunctioned. Perhaps they were lost. In terrain too vast for their limited capabilities to navigate, 6 hours into the exercise, the coalition forces controlled 90% of the battlefield. They had secured strategic positions and established communication networks that covered the entire moon. Their victory seemed complete except for the minor detail that they had never actually found their enemies. Major Sullivan's voice suddenly crackled through the coalition communication system, speaking perfect Vorthan. Exercise complete. All enemy forces have been eliminated. The alien commanders stared at their tactical displays in confusion. Every coalition unit showed green status indicators. No one reported taking casualties. No weapons had been fired. No battles had been fought. The human claim of victory seemed impossible. Then the reports began coming in from individual units. Squad leaders discovered simulation tags attached to their equipment indicating they had been killed in action. Team commanders found messages written in alien languages stating precise times and methods of elimination. Entire formations realized they had been marked for death. Without ever knowing they were under attack, the monitoring systems revealed the truth when technicians reviewed the recorded data. Human Marines had infiltrated coalition positions throughout the exercise. They had approached close enough to attach simulation devices to alien equipment. They had observed enemy movements and predicted tactical decisions. They had eliminated targets one by one while remaining completely invisible to advanced sensor networks. Rodriguez studied the after-action reports with satisfaction. Her Marines had done exactly what she expected. They had used terrain and patience. Instead of technology, they had moved without making sound or leaving traces. They had turned the coalition's own tactics against them by predicting how civilized warriors would behave in combat situations. The alien commanders demanded explanations for what seemed like impossible results. How had primitive humans defeated advanced technology? How had 12 Marines eliminated 300 warriors without being detected? How had simple tactics overcome sophisticated strategy and overwhelming numerical superiority? Sullivan provided a demonstration that answered their questions. She had positioned herself in the observation center during the exercise. She had watched alien commanders plan their strategy. She had predicted their movements and communicated with her team using signals the coalition monitoring systems couldn't detect. She had essentially observed the exercise from inside enemy headquarters. "You fight like prey animals," Sullivan explained to the assembled coalition leadership. "You stay together for protection. You make noise to scare away threats. You use technology instead of instincts. You follow rules that make you predictable to anyone who understands how you think." The implications terrified the alien observers. Human tactics didn't rely on superior technology or overwhelming numbers. They relied on patience and stealth and understanding enemy psychology. They turned advantages into disadvantages by forcing opponents to fight battles they couldn't win. Dr. Nathan Cross addressed the coalition military leadership with an explanation that chilled them to their cores. Humans had evolved as persistence predators who could track prey across vast distances. They had refined these abilities through millennia of warfare against their own species. They possessed instincts and capabilities that made them apex predators. In any environment, the wargame facility had provided perfect conditions for human hunting tactics. Vast terrain that allowed for concealment and movement. Multiple types of cover that could hide human-sized figures. No rules that prevented the use of stealth and patience instead of direct confrontation. The coalition had created an environment where humans could demonstrate their natural advantages. Rodriguez departed Nexus Prime knowing that word of the exercise would spread throughout the galaxy. The most advanced military academy in coalition space had been infiltrated and defeated by primitive humans using basic tactics. The implications for galactic security were staggering and undeniable. the Vorthans filed classified reports recommending immediate changes to coalition military doctrine. Human tactics required new countermeasures and different strategies. Traditional approaches to warfare were useless against enemies who fought like predators, instead of civilized beings following established rules, but the damage was already done. Every species in the coalition now knew that human soldiers could defeat superior numbers and advanced technology through patience and skill. They knew that Earth's silent soldiers moved through battlefields like invisible death. They knew that humanity had brought something into the galaxy that changed the fundamental nature of warfare itself. Captain Ben Williams felt the ground shake under his feet as Kepler dropships screamed through the atmosphere toward Research Station Gamma on Sigma Draconis 3. The attack came without warning during the night cycle when most of the mixed human coalition research team was sleeping. Emergency alarms wailed through corridors as energy weapons began tearing through the station's outer defenses. The coalition defenders followed their training and retreated to fortified positions in the station's central core. Ambassador Thecamore of the Zephyrian delegation ordered immediate evacuation while calling for fleet reinforcements. The research station's alien staff huddled in safe rooms designed to withstand orbital bombardment. They expected rescue within hours and survival. Until then, Williams watched the tactical display and counted enemy forces with growing concern. The Kepler had brought their entire raiding fleet to eliminate what should have been a minor research outpost. 3,000 berserker warriors armed with weapons designed to tear through heavy armor and energy shields. Their battle cries echoed across the planet's surface as they prepared for glorious combat. Communications officer Sarah Kim monitored alien frequencies from the safety of the station's command bunker. The Kepler were broadcasting their intentions across all channels. They wanted the coalition forces to know they were coming. They wanted their enemies to prepare for battle. They considered it dishonorable to attack opponents who couldn't fight back properly. "They're setting up for a traditional assault," Kim reported to Williams. "Massed formations advancing on prepared positions. They expect us to meet them with energy weapons and defensive fire. They want a battle they can win through superior numbers and firepower." Williams studied the enemy positions through long-range sensors and made a decision that would have horrified his coalition allies if they had known about it. Instead of joining the defenders in their fortified positions, he gathered his small security detail and prepared to leave the safety of the station. 8 human soldiers against 3,000 alien berserkers, the coalition commanders protested. When Williams announced his intentions, the research station had been designed as a fortress that could withstand major attacks. The smart strategy was to wait for reinforcement fleets while holding defensive positions. Leaving the station was suicide that served no tactical purpose. Williams ignored their protests and led his team into the darkness outside the station. The humans carried basic equipment and projectile weapons that looked primitive compared to coalition energy technology. They moved without powered armor or energy shields. They disappeared into terrain that the aliens considered empty wasteland. Pilot officer Tony Garcia launched his stealth fighter from the station's hidden hangar and immediately went to silent running mode. His aircraft used technology that made it nearly invisible to Kepler sensors. He wouldn't engage in direct combat but would serve as the team's eyes in the sky while they moved through enemy territory. The Kepler expected their attack to follow traditional patterns. Coalition forces would defend fixed positions while alien warriors advanced in massive formations. Energy weapons would light up the battlefield. Communications would crackle with status reports and tactical updates. The battle would be glorious and decisive. Instead, they found something that violated every rule of civilized warfare. Human soldiers moving through their ranks like ghosts. No energy signatures to track. No communication chatter to intercept. No mass formations to target with heavy weapons. Just invisible death striking from impossible distances. The first Kepler squad leaders simply collapsed at their posts. With no warning, no energy discharge detected. No enemy forces spotted, no battle cry or challenge issued. The berserkers found their officers dead from projectile wounds fired by weapons they couldn't locate. Their own sensors showed empty terrain. In all directions, Kim monitored Kepler communications from the safety bunker and relayed impossible reports to the coalition defenders. Human soldiers were moving through enemy positions without being detected. They were eliminating targets and vanishing without leaving traces. They were turning the Kepler's own tactics against them through superior fieldcraft and patience. The Berserkers tried to respond with their traditional methods. They fired energy weapons into areas where they suspected enemies might be hiding. They advanced in massive formations designed to overwhelm opposition through sheer numbers. They broadcast challenges demanding honorable combat from opponents, who seemed afraid to fight properly. Williams and his team ignored the challenges and continued their methodical elimination of enemy leaders. They moved from position to position using cover and concealment that Kepler technology couldn't penetrate. They fired from ranges that made return fire impossible. They struck when their targets were most vulnerable and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Garcia provided aerial support that confused and terrified the alien forces. His stealth fighter appeared on Kepler sensors for seconds at a time before vanishing again. He didn't attack directly, but instead directed ground operations with surgical precision. The aliens found themselves under observation by an enemy. They couldn't catch or counter. The psychological effect on Kepler forces was devastating. Berserkers who lived for glorious battle found themselves unable to locate their enemies. Warriors who prided themselves on fearless advances discovered they were being hunted by invisible predators. Leaders who expected heroic combat died quietly. At their post, without even seeing their killers, supply lines began disappearing as human soldiers struck at logistics points. The Kepler hadn't even considered vulnerable. Ammunition depots exploded without warning. Communication relays stopped, functioning for no apparent reason. Command posts fell silent as their operators were eliminated by enemies, who struck from outside sensor range. The Kepler attempt to adapt their tactics only made things worse. When they spread out to search for human infiltrators, they became easier targets for precision shooting. When they concentrated their forces, they created predictable patterns that Williams could exploit. Everything they tried played into human advantages. Dr. Paul Carter monitored the battle from the research station and provided analysis that terrified coalition observers. The humans weren't winning through superior technology or overwhelming firepower. They were winning through psychology and patience and understanding of enemy behavior. They had turned warfare into a hunting expedition. The Kepler began withdrawing from combat positions as casualties mounted without any sign of effective resistance. Squad leaders refused to advance into areas where their predecessors had been eliminated. Warriors who had never shown fear in traditional combat started demanding overwhelming support before moving through terrain that might conceal human soldiers. Williams received reports from his team that confirmed what coalition forces couldn't believe. The Kepler were retreating. 3,000 berserker warriors armed with advanced weapons were pulling back from 8 human soldiers carrying projectile firearms. The psychological impact of invisible enemies had broken their will to fight. The retreat became a rout as Kepler forces abandoned their positions and returned to their dropships. They had never encountered enemies who fought like predators instead of prey. They couldn't adapt to warfare that relied on stealth and patience instead of glorious combat. They fled from a battlefield they couldn't understand, Garcia confirmed. The withdrawal as Kepler ships lifted off and departed the system. The entire raiding fleet was abandoning their mission because they couldn't fight enemies they couldn't see. The most fearsome warriors in coalition space were running from human soldiers who had never fired a shot at them directly. Williams and his team returned to the research station as heroes to the coalition forces and ghosts to the Kepler survivors. They had demonstrated something that would change galactic warfare forever. Human tactics could defeat superior numbers and advanced technology through patience and skill and understanding of enemy psychology. File communication intercepts. That revealed the true scope of human victory. Kepler forces were spreading word throughout their territory about invisible enemies who killed without sound. They warned other raiding fleets to avoid human-defended positions. They classified Earth soldiers as supernatural threats that couldn't be defeated through traditional combat. The research station incident became legend among coalition military forces and nightmare among their enemies. 8 human soldiers had defeated 3,000 alien warriors without sustaining casualties or using advanced technology. They had proven that humanity brought something into the galaxy that changed the fundamental nature of warfare itself. Admiral Chris Baker stood in the situation room at Earth Command and studied reports that painted a picture of galactic chaos spreading across Coalition space. Every human military unit deployed beyond Earth's solar system was reporting the same phenomenon. Alien forces were avoiding direct engagement with human troops. They were retreating at the first sign of human presence. They were demanding overwhelming numerical superiority. Before considering any operation that might involve Earth soldiers, the reports came from dozens of worlds and hundreds of different situations. Trade disputes where alien security forces withdrew rather than confront human peacekeepers. Border conflicts where coalition fleets refused to engage ships with human crews. Pirate attacks that stopped immediately when human reinforcements arrived. The galaxy was developing a pathological fear of humanity's military capabilities. Commander Rachel Torres presented intelligence analysis that revealed the scope of the problem. Every major species in the coalition had developed their own interpretation of human combat effectiveness. The Zephyrians believed humans possessed advanced cloaking technology that made them invisible to sensors. The Vorthans thought humans were telepathic beings who could read enemy thoughts. The Kethver spread tales of invisible demons who stole voices and left only silence. None of them understand what they're really seeing, Torres explained to the assembled command staff. They're trying to explain human tactics using their own technological frameworks. They can't accept that we're winning through patience and skill instead of advanced equipment. Baker reviewed classified footage from recent encounters and saw the pattern clearly. Human soldiers moved differently than their coalition counterparts. They used terrain and concealment instinctively. They anticipated enemy movements with accuracy that seemed supernatural. They struck when opponents were most vulnerable and disappeared before effective response was possible. Dr. Nathan Cross provided historical context that explained why human warfare appeared magical to alien observers. Earth soldiers had evolved from persistence predators who could track prey across vast distances. They had refined these abilities through millennia of conflict against their own species. They possessed instincts that other galactic civilizations had lost or never developed. The intelligence reports revealed how different species interpreted human capabilities according to their own cultural fears. The energy-dependent Zephyrians couldn't imagine stealth without technological cloaking devices. The hive-minded Vorthans assumed coordination without communication required telepathic abilities. The honor-obsessed Kethver believed invisible killers must be supernatural entities. They're all wrong about our methods, but right about our effectiveness, Cross continued. Human soldiers can defeat superior numbers and advanced technology through tactics that appear impossible to civilized observers. We're not using magic. We're using skills that other species forgot how to develop. Torres presented communication intercepts that showed how fear of human capabilities was spreading through unofficial channels. Coalition military units were sharing warnings about Earth's silent soldiers. Trade guilds were advising members to avoid conflicts where humans might intervene. Even civilian populations were developing superstitions about mysterious deathbringers from the small blue world. The psychological warfare was happening without any deliberate human effort. Earth soldiers simply fought the way their training and instincts demanded. They used stealth and patience and precision instead of energy weapons and massed formations. The fact that these tactics seemed impossible to alien observers made them even more effective. Baker studied tactical analyses that revealed the true scope of human advantages. Coalition forces relied on technology and predetermined strategies that made them predictable to experienced human commanders. Their weapons, produced energy signatures that announced their positions. Their communications used frequencies that human equipment could monitor. Their formations followed patterns that patient observers could anticipate. "We don't need to win wars," Baker realized as he reviewed the data. "We've already won them before they start. Every alien military in the galaxy is afraid to fight us because they don't understand how we fight them." The reports included detailed accounts of encounters where human forces achieved victory without firing shots. Pirate fleets that fled rather than face human patrol ships. Rebel groups that surrendered when they learned human peacekeepers were coming. Border disputes that resolved themselves through negotiation when both sides knew human observers were. Watching. Torres presented the most disturbing intelligence of all. Coalition military analysts were recommending complete revision of galactic warfare doctrine to counter human tactics. They were developing new weapons and sensors designed specifically to detect human soldiers. They were creating countermeasures for capabilities they didn't understand based on fears they couldn't rationalize. "They're preparing for war against us," Torres warned. "Not because we've threatened them, but because they're terrified of what we might do. Fear is making them dangerous in ways that actual hostility never could." Cross provided psychological profiles of alien leadership that revealed how different species were processing the human threat. Some wanted to eliminate humanity before Earth's silent soldiers could spread their tactics to other civilizations. Others sought to study human methods and adapt them for their own forces. A few recommended complete isolation to avoid any possibility of conflict. The intelligence painted a picture of galactic civilization teetering on the edge of panic. Humanity had introduced something into coalition space that challenged fundamental assumptions about warfare and civilization. The fact that humans achieved their victories through skill rather than technology made the threat seem even more dangerous. Baker convened emergency sessions with civilian leadership to discuss the implications. Earth's military had become so effective that it was destabilizing galactic politics without intending to do so. Human soldiers were creating fear through competence rather than aggression. The galaxy was preparing for war against an enemy that didn't want to fight. "We have a choice," Baker explained to the assembled leadership. "We can withdraw from galactic affairs and leave the coalition to sort out their own problems. Or we can try to find a way to coexist with civilizations that are terrified of our military capabilities." The reports from human units across the galaxy supported both options. Earth soldiers could disappear from coalition space as easily as they had appeared. Their stealth capabilities made detection impossible when they didn't want to be found. They could maintain observation posts on alien worlds without being discovered. They could influence events without revealing their presence. Alternatively, humanity could try to reassure alien civilizations that Earth's intentions were peaceful. Human tactics could be used for protection rather than conquest. Earth silent. Soldiers could become peacekeepers who prevented conflicts through their mere presence. The galaxy's fear of human capabilities could become a force for stability. Torres presented the final piece of intelligence that would determine humanity's choice. Coalition leadership was planning a preemptive strike against Earth to eliminate the human threat before it could spread further. They were gathering the largest fleet in galactic history to destroy humanity's homeworld and scatter its people across the void. The irony was perfect and terrifying. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations were preparing to commit genocide against Earth because they were afraid of human soldiers who had never attacked them. Fear of humanity's defensive capabilities was driving aliens to attempt the very aggression that would justify human retaliation. Baker realized that the silent war had already begun, not through human action but through alien reaction to human competence. The galaxy was preparing to destroy Earth because they couldn't understand how human soldiers achieved their victories. They were creating the very conflict they sought to prevent. The choice was no longer between peace and war, but between survival and extinction. Earth's silent soldiers would have to prove that their capabilities included more than just victory in combat. They would have to demonstrate that humanity's greatest weapon was not the ability to fight wars, but the wisdom to prevent them. Ambassador Victoria Stone walked into the negotiation chamber aboard New Geneva Station and saw the representatives of 12 alien civilizations waiting for her with weapons barely concealed and fear written across their faces. The Galactic Coalition had assembled the largest fleet in recorded history to enforce their demands. 5,000 warships hung in space outside the station ready to reduce Earth to radioactive dust if negotiations failed, the aliens believed. They held all the advantages. Their technology was superior to anything humanity possessed. Their numbers were overwhelming. Their weapons could sterilize entire worlds in minutes. They had come to dictate terms to a primitive species that had somehow acquired dangerous capabilities through unknown means. Specialist Derek Hayes sat quietly in the observation gallery above the main chamber and watched alien security forces. Patrol corridors they believed were secure. The Coalition delegates had no idea that human operatives had been aboard their flagships for weeks. Every conversation had been monitored. Every strategic plan had been observed. Every defensive measure had been studied and countered. Stone began the negotiations by acknowledging the Coalition's concerns about human military capabilities. She understood their fear of tactics they couldn't explain or counter. She recognized their desire to eliminate threats to galactic stability. She was prepared to discuss reasonable solutions that would address their security concerns. "We know you have studied our conflicts," Stone said to the assembled delegates. "You have seen our soldiers in action. You have witnessed capabilities that seem impossible given our technological limitations. You want to understand how we achieve victories that violate your understanding of warfare." Ambassador Zeltar of the Vorthan Empire spoke for the Coalition with words that carried the weight of unanimous agreement. Humanity would submit to complete disarmament and territorial confinement or face immediate extermination. There would be no negotiation of terms. Earth's silent soldiers represented an existential threat that could not be tolerated. The ultimatum was exactly what human intelligence had predicted. Fear had driven rational beings to attempt genocide against a species that had never attacked them. The Coalition's terror of human capabilities had created the very conflict they sought to prevent. They were demanding humanity's destruction because they couldn't understand humanity's strength. Stone smiled and activated a communication device that connected to every Coalition flagship simultaneously. The alien commanders heard their own security briefings played back to them in perfect detail. Conversations held in supposedly secure locations. Strategic plans discussed in encrypted communications. Tactical preparations monitored by observers they had never detected. "We have been watching you watch us," Stone explained to delegates who were beginning to understand the true scope of human capabilities. "Your fleets have been under observation since they assembled. Your security has been compromised since you arrived. Your plans have been known to us since you made them." Hayes stood up in the observation gallery and revealed the impossible truth. Human operatives had infiltrated every major Coalition military installation over the past month. They had accessed classified information without triggering security alerts. They had observed alien preparations and countermeasures without being detected by the most advanced sensor networks in the galaxy. The demonstration continued as Hayes displayed evidence of human presence aboard every Coalition flagship. Photographs taken in secure areas, documents copied from classified databases, conversations recorded in private quarters. The aliens' own security footage confirmed infiltrations that their technology had never detected. "We don't want to fight you," Hayes explained to the terrified alien delegates. "We don't want to conquer your worlds or destroy your civilizations. We simply want to coexist peacefully while exploring the galaxy and learning from other species. But if you force us to defend ourselves, we will do so with capabilities you cannot imagine or counter." The revelation changed everything about the negotiation. The Coalition had assembled their greatest fleet to intimidate humanity through superior numbers and firepower. Instead, they discovered that their most secure installations had been compromised by enemies they never knew were present. Their technological advantages were useless against opponents who could bypass them completely. Commander Alex Johnson addressed the coalition leadership through the station's communication system and explained humanity's position with clarity that left no room for misunderstanding. Earth's soldiers were not interested in galactic conquest or dominance. They were explorers and peacekeepers who used their abilities to protect rather than destroy. We understand that our capabilities frighten you, Johnson continued. You have built civilizations based on technology and overwhelming force. You cannot comprehend tactics that rely on patience and skill and understanding of enemy psychology. You fear us because we represent something outside your experience. Stone presented the coalition with humanity's terms for peaceful coexistence. Earth would accept membership in galactic civilization as an equal partner. Human soldiers would serve as peacekeepers in situations where conventional forces proved inadequate. Earth's tactical knowledge would be shared, with allies while remaining secret from potential enemies. The alternative was clearly stated without threats or ultimatums. Humanity would withdraw from galactic affairs and defend Earth using capabilities the coalition had already witnessed. Any attempt to attack human territory would result in retaliation that would make previous demonstrations seem gentle by comparison. Zelter demanded proof that humanity could deliver on their promises of peaceful cooperation. The coalition needed assurance that Earth's silent soldiers would protect galactic stability rather than threaten it. They wanted guarantees that human capabilities would be used responsibly. Hayes provided that proof by revealing the full extent of human infiltration throughout coalition space. Every major military base had been observed and mapped. Every government facility had been accessed and studied. Every potential threat to galactic peace had been identified and prepared for neutralization. Humanity had already won the war that never needed to be fought. We have been your peacekeepers for months without you knowing it, Hayes explained. Pirate fleets that disappeared, rebel movements that collapsed, border conflicts that resolved themselves. We have been maintaining galactic stability while you prepared to destroy us for capabilities you feared but never understood. The coalition delegates realized they had no choice but to accept human terms. Their own intelligence confirmed that resistance was futile against enemies who could predict their strategies and bypass their defenses. Fear had driven them to the negotiating table, but wisdom would keep them there. Stone presented the Treaty of Terra Nova that established humanity's role in galactic civilization. Earth would serve as the coalition's troubleshooters and peacekeepers. Human soldiers would intervene in situations where conventional approaches failed. Earth's tactical expertise would be available to allies while remaining hidden from enemies. The signing ceremony was attended by representatives of every major civilization in coalition space. They came to witness the end of the silent war that had terrified the galaxy for months. They came to establish a new balance of power based on cooperation rather than conquest. Admiral Morrison arrived from Earth aboard a small escort vessel that somehow appeared in the middle of the coalition fleet without triggering any sensors. The demonstration of human stealth capabilities served as a final reminder of what the galaxy would face if peaceful coexistence failed, Morrison addressed the assembled delegates with words that would define humanity's relationship with galactic civilization for generations to come. Earth's silent soldiers would protect the peace rather than threaten it. They would hunt down those who endangered innocent lives while leaving law-abiding citizens in safety. We don't fight because we have to, Morrison concluded. We fight because we choose to, and that choice is what makes us dangerous to our enemies and valuable to our friends. We are humanity's gift to a galaxy that had forgotten how to maintain peace through strength. The treaty was signed with ceremonies that broadcast across coalition space. The galaxy learned that humanity had joined galactic civilization not as conquerors but as protectors. Earth's silent soldiers would serve as guardians who prevented conflicts through their mere presence. Stone departed New Geneva Station knowing that humanity had achieved something remarkable. They had turned fear into respect and suspicion into alliance. They had proven that strength used wisely could create peace rather than destroy it. The galaxy would never again underestimate the power of Earth's silent soldiers or question their commitment to protecting those who could not protect themselves.